In the heart of a quiet town stood a small woodworking shop, tucked between a bakery and a faded tailor's store. The scent of sawdust lingered in the air, warm, earthy, familiar, like the trace of someone who had given his life to his craft. That someone was Arif, a man of precision and patience, who believed that the worth of a day was measured by how much he could finish, how perfectly he could shape a piece of wood into something useful. Every morning, before the sun rose, Arif swept the floors, aligned his tools, and whispered a silent prayer, not of thanks, but of request. He asked for progress, success, recognition. Gratitude to him was something reserved for grand occasions, a reward for achievement, not a companion to the struggle. His hands were steady, but his heart often raced ahead of him, worrying about bills, about competition, about the invisible race he believed everyone was running. He was respected in town, yet quietly afraid of being forgotten. His discipline was his armor, and his pride was the voice that pushed him through exhaustion. If I stop, everything will stop. At home, the nights were long and quiet. The ticking of the old clock was the only sound that filled the small room. Sometimes, Arif would sit by the window, watching the streetlights shimmer against the rain, wondering if this endless rhythm of work and waiting was all life had to offer. He didn't know it then, but his story was about to bend, not in the way of great victories or miracles, but through a quiet lesson that would teach him the meaning of something he had long overlooked, the silent gift of gratitude. As the weeks passed, Arif's dedication began to bear fruit. Customers lingered longer in his shop, admiring the delicate grain of the wood, the smoothness of every joint, the subtle elegance that seemed to flow naturally from his hands. Word spread beyond the small town. Merchants from nearby villages arrived with orders, each one offering a nod of respect that felt heavier than any coin. Arif felt a quiet thrill. The long hours, the repeated sanding, the meticulous measuring, all of it seemed to make sense now. His hands, once tired and calloused, felt like instruments tuned to a purpose. Every finished table or chair carried more than skill. It carried a reflection of his discipline, a testament to his patience. For the first time, he allowed himself to imagine a life where work and recognition were aligned, where his efforts were not invisible. The townspeople began to notice subtle changes too. Children pointed him out with admiration, neighbors paused to greet him with a smile, and the local bakery owner offered him warm bread without charge. These small gestures, meant or unnoticed, filled the empty spaces in Arif's heart. He felt seen. He felt important. Yet, amid the rising tide of success, a quiet tension began to form. The more praise he received, the more he craved it. Each compliment became a barometer of worth. Discipline, once a personal companion, was now tethered to approval. Arif began measuring not just the quality of his craft, but the weight of others' admiration. He worked longer hours, pushed harder, and whispered to himself each night, "I must not fail, not now." Still, at this moment, he believed he was invincible. Every victory felt earned. Every nod felt deserved. The shop was warm, full, and alive with possibility. Life, he thought, was finally bending in the way he had always hoped. But what he could not yet see was that the very pride and dependence on recognition, which seemed harmless, was quietly laying the foundation for a storm he would not escape. It began with a single misstep, a shipment delayed, a trusted supplier failing to deliver, a miscalculation in materials. Arif, who had always believed that discipline could control everything, suddenly found himself at the mercy of forces beyond his hands. Orders went unfulfilled, deadlines slipped, and whispers of disappointment traveled faster than the wood dust in his shop. The pride that had carried him so confidently now became a heavy weight. Customers he had once welcomed warmly returned with thinly veiled frustration. "We trusted you," they said, and though the words were polite, each one cut deeper than any saw could carve. For the first time, Arif felt the fragile nature of his achievements, how easily they could crumble when life refused to follow the rules he had set for it. One evening, after locking the shop and wandering the empty streets, he saw the familiar faces of neighbors who once nodded with respect now turn their gaze elsewhere. Even the children who had waved at him no longer stopped to marvel at his work. He realized, with a sinking ache, that he had built his sense of worth on something transient. Everything he had depended upon, the praise, the recognition, the steady rhythm of accomplishment, was slipping through his fingers like fine sand. The loss was not just financial, it was deeply personal. For the first time, Arif faced himself without the comforting mirror of achievement. Doubts, previously whispered in the back of his mind, now shouted, "Who are you if no one notices? If your hands are empty, what remains of your life?" Sleep eluded him. The sawdust smelled like failure. Even the warm glow of his shop lights felt harsh, exposing the fragility of all he had believed in. That night, he sat alone, the tools around him suddenly strange and unfamiliar. Every table, every chair, every piece of carved wood seemed to mock him silently. He had worked so hard, followed every rule of discipline, and yet life had unfolded differently. The pain was raw, piercing, and Arif, for the first time, understood that discipline alone could not shield a man from the storms life inevitably brings. Arif refused to accept what had happened. Each morning, he opened the doors of his shop with a sense of obligation rather than purpose, hoping that if he worked harder, life would return to the way it once was. He measured every plank of wood with obsessive precision, polished each chair with extra care, and stayed up far past midnight, revising accounts and plans. Discipline had become a cage, and he was trapped inside, believing that sheer effort could rewrite reality. The town's gentle gestures, once unnoticed, now felt like tests he had to pass. A neighbor's friendly nod became a question of worth, a child's smile a reminder of judgment. Every mistake, every small delay, every unfulfilled expectation seemed amplified in his mind. He replayed conversations, orders, and missteps endlessly, whispering to himself, "If only I had done this, if only I had been faster, more precise, more careful." Grief and guilt became companions he could not shake. The warmth that once flowed through his craft dried into tension. His hands moved automatically, but his heart was heavy with resentment toward the world, toward others, and even toward himself. Arif believed that if he controlled everything, if he perfected every detail, he could avoid the pain of failure again. But in reality, the harder he clutched, the more the threads of life seemed to slip. His relationships frayed. Friends stopped calling, sensing the weight he carried. His family's gentle advice went unheard. dismissed as distractions from his work. He became obsessed with the past, clinging to memory as though he could press it into a shape that fit his narrative. Every day was a repetition of denial, a loop of frustration and imagined solutions, and gratitude, once a quiet possibility, was buried beneath a mountain of what-ifs. In the silence of the shop, as the evening sun fell across unfinished tables, Arif finally admitted to himself the bitter truth. He was alone. Not because the world had abandoned him, but because he had refused to accept the one thing he could not control: life's unpredictability. And yet, in that denial, the seed of change had quietly lodged itself, waiting for a moment of gentle awakening.